Preserve this moment, a symbol of enduring affection. Because a diamond is forever.
Picture this. In the early 1990s, one company secretly held so many diamonds that if they released them all at once, the entire global market would collapse overnight. And here's the insane part. This stockpile wasn't an accident. It was a weapon. A $5 billion doomsday device designed to scare governments, crush competitors, and keep a century-old empire alive. For decades, this company didn't just sell diamonds. It controlled who could buy them, who could sell them, and exactly what they were worth. Even the world's biggest nations couldn't challenge it. But as apartheid collapsed and South Africa faced revolution, the empire was cornered. And that's when it made the most dangerous move in corporate history. This is the secret story of the diamond cartel that held the world hostage, and the hidden stockpile that almost broke the global economy. If you controlled the world's diamonds, you controlled the price of love, power, and status itself. And De Beers knew that better than anyone. Their entire system revolved around one idea: control the supply, control the price, forever. The heart of that system sat in London, a quiet little corporate office with an innocent name, the Diamond Trading Company, the DTC. Sounds harmless, right? It wasn't. This was the pipe that every diamond on Earth had to pass through. If you mined diamonds, you sold them to the DTC. If you needed diamonds, you bought from the DTC. There was no plan B, and this is where it gets ruthless. Only a tiny elite group, the site holders, could buy from De Beers. A few times a year, they were summoned to London and handed a sealed box of diamonds. Price? Fixed? Negotiation? Zero? Options? Take it, or lose your status forever. It was the closest thing the global market had to a royal decree. And it worked, brutally well. But the scary part is what happened when someone tried to leave the system. In the late 70s, Israeli diamond dealers got bold. They tried to buy rough stones outside the cartel. De Beers didn't argue. They didn't bargain. First, they quietly tweaked loan terms. Interest rates shot up. Then the kill shot, a public announcement cutting Israel's diamond allocation by 20%. That single move collapsed an entire national industry. 1 in 4 workers lost their jobs. Rebellion? Over. And if that sounds harsh, what they did to Zaire was even colder. When Zaire tried selling its own industrial diamonds, De Beers pulled a classic cartel play. They opened their stockpile and flooded the market with identical stones. Prices crashed. Zaire's profits evaporated. The breakaway failed. And when the country crawled back to the cartel, they were given worse terms than before, a public reminder that the cartel didn't lose. By now, De Beers wasn't just controlling the diamond market. They were engineering it, policing it, and punishing anyone who stepped out of line. But what the world didn't know is that all of this power rested on something even more dangerous: a growing vault of hidden diamonds, a secret weapon big enough to threaten entire nations. And that stockpile was about to become the center of the biggest corporate standoff of the century. De Beers didn't rise on clever economics alone. Their empire stood on something far darker: a political system built to control land, labor, and human lives. And here's the truth most people don't want to touch. Apartheid didn't just benefit De Beers. De Beers helped create it. It starts with Cecil Rhodes, not just a diamond tycoon, an imperialist obsessed with dominating Southern Africa. Cheap labor was the key to his mines, so he turned to politics, became Prime Minister of the Cape Colony, and pushed through racist laws designed to force Black Africans off their land. One of them, the Glenn Gray Act of 1894, stripped people from their homes and funneled them straight into the mines. These weren't just policies, they were the blueprint for apartheid decades before the word existed, and Rhodes knew exactly what he was doing. But the brutality didn't stop there. When the Oppenheimer family took over in the 1920s, the system became even more ruthless. De Beers built what they called closed labor compounds, a polite name for something that looked a lot more like prison camps. Workers were separated from their families for months or even years. Cramped barracks, rotting food, zero medical care. Safety? Forget it. In one mine fire in 1888, more than 200 men died. Why? The company had locked the escape routes to prevent theft, and the humiliation was intentional. When miners finished their contracts, they were stripped naked, isolated, and forced to wear thick, fingerless leather gloves so they couldn't touch anything. Meals were thrown on the floor, eaten like animals. This wasn't security, it was psychological domination. But this cruelty wasn't just tolerated, it became the engine of South Africa's economy. By the 1970s, De Beers and its parent company, Anglo-American, were basically the financial spine of the apartheid state. 10% of South Africa's entire GNP, 30% of all exports wages, so low they were designed to keep black miners permanently trapped. When Harry Oppenheimer was asked in 1972 why black workers weren't paid a living wage, his answer was chilling. Paying them fairly, he said, would bankrupt the smaller, white-owned mines. The entire system depended on exploitation, and De Beers was its largest beneficiary. Yet publicly, Oppenheimer played a different role. In the West, Harry Oppenheimer presented himself as a liberal, even a quiet critic of apartheid. He funded anti-apartheid parties. He condemned the harshest laws. He shook hands with global leaders. But behind closed doors, his mining companies kept the machine running year after year, profit after profit. His liberalism wasn't morale, it was strategic, a mask to protect a monopoly built on forced labor. And this double game bought De Beers decades of power. But power always comes with a price. By the 1980s, apartheid was cracking. Sanctions were rising. The world was turning against South Africa. And De Beers knew something terrifying. If the government fell, their entire empire could fall with it. So they made a move, a quiet, calculated shift that would lead directly to the creation of their most dangerous weapon, the billion-dollar stockpile. The same stockpile that could crash the market or save their empire. By the 1980s, De Beers looked untouchable. A monopoly, a cartel, a global puppet master. But every empire faces a moment when the ground shifts, and for De Beers, that moment hit like an earthquake. Inside South Africa, resistance was exploding. Strikes, boycotts, underground organizing led by the ANC. The country was becoming impossible to control. Outside South Africa, the world had finally had enough. Sanctions were mounting, governments were pulling out, investors were fleeing, and then came the hammer blow, the U.S. Comprehensive Anti-Apartheid Act of 1986. For De Beers, this wasn't politics, it was survival. If apartheid fell, the company that had built its wealth on cheap, controlled labor suddenly had everything to lose. But that was only half the problem. The other threat came from thousands of miles away. New diamond producers were rising, and they didn't want to join the cartel. The Soviets, once compliant partners, began leaking diamonds onto the global market for hard currency. No contracts, no rules, no loyalty. Australia opened Argyle, one of the largest diamond mines on Earth, and immediately said, "We're selling our own stones." Canada discovered massive new deposits, and from day one made it clear, no De Beers. For the first time in a century, the cartel wasn't the only game in town. De Beers' market share had been above 80% for decades. Now, it was in free fall, and the Oppenheimer family could see exactly where this was heading. If apartheid collapsed, a new South African government, led by the ANC, could seize the mines. And if they did, they could sell diamonds directly to the world, flood the market, crash prices, destroy De Beers' entire pricing system in a single stroke. Everything the cartel built for 100 years, gone. So Harry Oppenheimer made his first quiet move. He reached out to the ANC, not publicly, not loudly, but carefully, positioning De Beers as a necessary partner for a future democratic South Africa. It was a smart play, a calculated one, but it wasn't enough. At the same time, Russia kept leaking stones. Australia kept selling independently. New producers kept emerging. De Beers couldn't intimidate all of them. They couldn't buy all of them. The cartel was fighting a war on two fronts, a political revolution at home and a supply explosion abroad. If either one broke through, the entire global diamond price would collapse. It was the risk they feared most, because diamonds only have value if the world believes they're scarce. And De Beers was losing control of the illusion. So the company did something no one expected. They prepared a weapon bigger than any marketing campaign, negotiation, or political alliance. If the world was going to flood the market with diamonds, De Beers would be ready to absorb the flood. They began secretly expanding their vault, buying up stones at a scale nobody had seen before. A hidden stockpile worth billions that could threaten entire governments. A stockpile built not to stabilize the market, but to hold the world hostage. And that weapon would define the next chapter of the empire. When every threat closed in, political collapse, market chaos, rebellious producers, De Beers did what only a true cartel would dare. They built a weapon, not a machine, not a policy, a stockpile, hidden, silent, and powerful enough to crush entire economies. The idea was brutally simple. If the world was going to dump diamonds on the market, De Beers would swallow the flood. They expanded their vaults. They sped up purchases. They bought everything: Russian leeks, rogue Australian rough, stones from every producer trying to break free. This wasn't inventory management anymore. It was economic warfare. By the early 1990s, the vault was holding an estimated $5 billion worth of diamonds. $5 billion. Locked in London, hidden from the world. It wasn't a reserve, it was leverage. To the ANC, the movement preparing to take power, this was a warning written in diamonds. Nationalize the mines? Sell directly to the world? Try to build a fair system after apartheid? Fine, but De Beers could crash the price overnight. Make the diamonds worthless. Starve the new government of revenue before it ever got started. It was a corporate message with geopolitical weight. Partner with us, or we burn the market down. Cold, calculated, deadly effective. But South Africa wasn't the only target. After the fall of the Soviet Union, Russian diamonds started leaking everywhere. Factories, warehouses, military bases. Anyone with access needed hard currency. At first, De Beers did the usual play, buying up the leaks and pretending everything was normal. But the leaks didn't stop. They grew, so the giant stockpile became a shield. De Beers absorbed the rogue supply, kept prices steady, and held the line until they could force Russia back to negotiations. It was a war of attrition, and De Beers had deeper pockets, colder nerves, and a vault full of ammunition. But even as they fought on the supply side, they were building a second front. The cartel knew the truth. No monopoly lasts forever. If supply couldn't be controlled, demand had to be engineered. So De Beers launched one of the most brilliant marketing offensives ever created. Their primary target? Japan, a country with almost zero tradition of diamond engagement rings, but a massive population with rising wealth. With a single campaign, they rewrote Japanese culture. They sold romance, modernity, status. The result? Japan became one of the world's largest diamond markets, a new sponge that soaked up the global supply. While the stockpile intimidated emerging producers, the marketing machine seduced new consumers. One hand threatened, the other hand charmed. By the mid-1990s, the weapon was ready. A $5 billion insurance policy. A vault that could drown competitors, force governments to cooperate, and stabilize prices through absolute fear. But there was one problem no one expected. The world was changing faster than the cartel could adapt. New producers kept breaking away. New mines kept opening. And the stockpile itself, this giant hidden asset, was turning into a ticking time bomb. Sooner or later, De Beers would have to choose: release the horde, or watch the empire collapse from the weight of its own weapon. By the mid-1990s, the world De Beers had dominated for a century was vanishing. The storm they'd spent decades outrunning had finally arrived. And for the first time, the cartel had to face a reality it never believed possible. They were no longer in control. South Africa holds its first democratic election. Nelson Mandela becomes president. The political earthquake hits. Everyone expected De Beers to be the first casualty. A new government, a new ideology, a chance to reclaim the country's natural wealth. But De Beers didn't collapse. Harry Oppenheimer's long game paid off. He'd built quiet relationships with the ANC, positioned De Beers as a stabilizing partner, and warned very subtly about what would happen if the cartel went to war with the new state. The ANC needed jobs, taxes, and economic stability. De Beers needed political survival, so both sides made the same choice: a fragile, uncomfortable partnership. Not equal, but functional. The cartel had survived the revolution, but not the world that came after. Even without political collapse, De Beers was bleeding out. Australia stayed independent. Canada marketed its stones as clean and non-cartel. Russia played its own game. De Beers' market share, once above 80%, kept sliding. By the late 90s, it was clear the monopoly was dying. And then in the year 2000, something unthinkable happened. De Beers publicly announced, "We're no longer controlling the global diamond market." A surrender, a confession, a moment no one imagined would ever come. Instead of being the shadowy central bank of diamonds, they said they'd become a normal company, focused on marketing their own stones, not the world's. For the first time in 100 years, the diamond market was truly open. But that announcement created a new problem, a massive one. The billion-dollar stockpile, the weapon that kept De Beers powerful, was now a liability. A mountain of diamonds sitting on the balance sheet worth billions, dragging the company down. If they sold too fast, prices would crash. If they held too long, value would evaporate. This was the scenario the entire industry feared for decades, a diamond apocalypse. So De Beers did something shocking. They slowly, quietly liquidated the hoard. Between 2000 and 2004, the vaults opened. Diamonds poured out, and the collapse everyone predicted never came. Demand had grown so much, from Japan, from America, from their marketing machine, that the world absorbed the shock. The weapon that once threatened to destroy the global market ended up fading without a scream. But De Beers was no longer the giant it once was. With its monopoly gone, De Beers had to reinvent itself. They leaned hard into branding, luxury, ethics, corporate social responsibility. Forever Mark, origin verification, Kimberly process participation. The same company that once ran brutal labor compounds was now speaking the language of morality and sustainability. But reality is messy, and history doesn't disappear just because the marketing changes. Today, De Beers controls around 35% of the diamond market by value. Still powerful, but no longer a king, just one of several major players. Botswana, once a supplier under the cartel, is now a negotiating powerhouse. They demand bigger shares, more control, more transparency. Meanwhile, their disputes continue over indigenous lands, especially the San people of Botswana, a bitter reminder that the old logic of extraction and displacement still echoes through the industry. The empire survived, but it didn't escape its past, the legacy that won't die. The billion-dollar stockpile is gone, the monopoly is gone, the secrecy has faded, but the scars, economic, political, human, are still here. And the real question now isn't whether De Beers got away with it. It's whether the world ever truly stopped them. Because when a corporation becomes powerful enough to hold an entire market hostage, the collapse of its empire is never the end of the story. So, did De Beers get away with it? The answer is a complicated yes and no. The short answer, yes and no. From a business standpoint, their survival was a masterclass in cold strategy. They stared down governments, outlasted political revolutions, manipulated global supply, and reshaped cultures from Tokyo to New York. The Oppenheimers walked away from billionaires. The company is still a global heavyweight, but the legacy is darker. The wealth of the Diamond Empire was built on forced labor, racial hierarchy, and a system designed to keep millions of Black South Africans poor for generations. You can dissolve a monopoly, you can rebrand a corporation, but you can't erase the scars. And even today, the echoes remain. Indigenous communities in Botswana still fight displacement. Governments still negotiate under pressure. And the industry De Beers created continues to struggle with the same moral contradictions buried at its core. A diamond may be forever, but so are the consequences of how it was mined. The billion-dollar stockpile is gone, the cartel is gone, but the power they once held, that shadow is still there. And that's the real story. How a single corporation shaped nations, controlled markets, and left a legacy the world is still untangling. What do you think? Can a company this powerful ever truly be held accountable? Or is this just how global markets work? Drop your thoughts below. I read every comment. And if you want more documentaries about the hidden forces shaping money, power, and history, make sure you hit subscribe. There's a lot more the world never told you, and we're just getting started.